All right, everyone wants to know why they have shoulder pain. It is the most common issue that I see in the clinic. It's most common among CrossFit athletes, Olympic weightlifters, even power lifters, especially as it relates to the bench press and even some overhead press and many of the athletes that we see. And everyone wants to know why the heck I constantly struggle with shoulder pain, right? So there's several different reasons for that. We're going to put three camps. We're going to call it mobility, stability, or simply volume, right? Those are the three categories as to why most people have shoulder pain. All right, one of the big issues is mobility. Now, not everyone has a mobility limitation, and honestly, I would say it's probably not the most common reason that I see shoulder pain. Everyone automatically assumes if you have shoulder pain, it must be some mobility limitation. Now, a couple quick screens that you can see is, hey, can I even get my arms up overhead and kind of clear my ear holes? Some of you guys can even get remotely close to this. You'll end up flaring in order to kind of clear your ear hole there. The other thing we want to look at is, hey, what does shoulder internal and external rotation look like? Can I take my hand and reach for the opposite shoulder blade? And then can I take over the top and reach for the opposite shoulder blade as well? Now, some of you guys can get that no problem, and that's why shoulder mobility is not your limitation. Now, some of you may have limitations in those planes, and that's going to prevent you from being able to get where you want to go. So really tackle those mobility drills if you do have limitations in those planes. Now, shoulder stability is probably the more common issue that I see, right? We don't ever sit and work isolation of our rotator cuff. More often than not, we're just lifting barbells overhead or getting up on the rig and doing some crazy things. So from a stability standpoint, as it relates to especially overhead squats and the snatch or even overhead press, as I get down into my nice overhead squat position, inevitably, I kind of end up in this position. I'm going to start putting a lot more stress on the front of my shoulder as I go to work into some of those planes. Now, the key is we want to make sure that we've got enough mobility up and down the chain, but really having a nice, stable, stacked foundation to get down into that overhead squat and overhead position. Now, from another big stability issue, we see it up on the rig, right? So we'll pretend that I'm up on the rig at this point. You know, someone's kind of getting some butterfly pull-up. They're pulling themselves to it. And then on the way down, they just traction those shoulders and they lack the stability to really lower themselves down the rig as well. And that can be a big piece of this also. Now, lastly, the big issue is volume. Right? Sometimes too much too soon is really the big culprit of our pain. It's not some magic or something seriously wrong with our shoulder. It's simply the fact that, hey, you've been practicing muscle ups, you've been practicing handstand push-ups, you haven't sit and worked your rotator cuff in isolation, and now you've got these deltoids and other big massive muscles that have kind of overtaken the shoulder, and that's your primary movement at this point. So these are the big three things: mobility, stability, and volume. Check all those three things and figure out why you might have shoulder pain.